And we are back. And I'm actually a little bit sad that this is the last session of the day, but you can see how far behind we are, and that we've actually, really wanted to give every student the opportunity to ask all their questions. So thank you for hanging around and for sticking with us. It's probably a little bit wrong to say that we're saving the best to last, but I am, and I'm sure that most of you are, massive fans of Patagonia and the brand and the movement and everything that comes with it. And that's why I'm just ridiculously pumped to bring this speaker live with us today. It is the incredible Elle, and I'm going to actually read from her bio because it is so impressive, and I really want you guys to get everything from this talk as possible. Please remember to ask any of your questions in the Q&A box, and we will get to them at the end. So Elle is the PR lead at Patagonia, Australia and New Zealand. She has been working as part of the marketing team in support of its mission, and its mission is we're in business to save our home planet. Like, how amazing is that? Prior to landing this position, Elle worked as an editor and writer for online and print publications in Australia, Japan, and Jordan, plus held formative sandwich artist jobs. She's also been a lifeguard and a bookstore assistant, and she did all of this to get through uni. Talking about uni, Elle has a Bachelor of Arts and Media and Communication in honours, and a Diploma of Languages from Deakin University. So let me just repeat that again: a Bachelor of Arts and Media and Communication, and a Diploma in Language from Deakin University. Driven by her opportunity to communicate solutions to our current climate crisis and encourage people to connect with the outdoors, she has also volunteered with Charity Climates and the Australian Volunteer Coast Guard. When not glued to her laptop, she lives for hiking, diving, surfing, doco nights, and playing frisbee with her puppy Jed. And I am so excited to welcome you, Elle. Welcome to CareerCon. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Kura. Thank you so much for having me. Really excited to be here.
I'm very excited for this chat. I love the direction of the brand, and in particular, that I'm a big fan of your career in general as well. So let's get stuck into these questions. The first one is, would love for you to take us back to, your time at high school, kind of explain the experiences and what it was all like, and how that sort of helped you get to where you are today.
Yeah, sure. So firstly, I'm calling in from Torquay on Victoria's Surf Coast. So I just wanted to take a sec to acknowledge that I'm calling in from the lands of the Wathaurong people of the Kulin Nation. And so I'm paying my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. And to start with your question, so back in high school, I guess I grew up in rural Western Victoria, and I have a twin brother, and we travelled on the bus to school every day. So that was like an hour each way to getting to high school. And we went to this particular school because we had sports scholarships. So we were really sporty. I think that was a result of me trying to keep up with him when I was younger. And that meant that I loved school, and I applied myself in school, but I was always really busy doing a lot of co-curricular things. And sometimes, that really influenced my direction in my high school days. But then at the end of year 11, I sustained like a really bad knee injury, and I found out I wasn't going to be able to run for a year. So that really changed things, and it got me focusing on my studies a lot more, reading a lot. And that's when I really kind of discovered that I love storytelling so much, and I wanted to maybe go in a journalistic or communications direction. And so I think during that VCE time, we had a really good careers program at our school, which many of you probably have all been through, with a careers counsellor. And my careers counsellor was really wonderful. She helped me focus on what my strengths were in relation to the classes I was doing well at, and then what careers they could potentially lead to. And at that time, I was a bit all over the place. I thought maybe marine biology or fashion design or aviation and things like that. So even right up to near the preference time, I was still kind of confused about what I wanted to do. But she helped set up an orientation. Many other students did it at a university in Melbourne, doing the like a 2-week fashion design intro course. And that was great. Like, I loved it, but it kind of cemented to me the fact that it was going to be really competitive. The lecturers were really honest about it, and how much commitment you'd have to be, and that maybe if you just enjoyed it as a hobby, you might want to reassess your options. And so that's how I kind of came to move into media and communications after high school. I don't think it wasn't my first preference. I knew I wanted to be in Melbourne because even though it was only 4.5 hours from my family, it was still kind of the closest to my family. And I was still only 17 when I went to university, because I guess mum had pushed us off to school pretty young. And so I didn't want to be too far away in that respect. And so I got into a media and communications degree at Deakin University in Melbourne, and I went from there. Please interject if I'm just like running off on a whole story.
No, that's awesome, because we would just keep the conversation flowing. Al, just as a side note, is your brother into the same stuff that you're into? Did you go into the same career path?
He's an engineer, and he does love the outdoors. Like, he loves like ultra marathons and things like that. But I would say he's a bit more conservative than me. Maybe he did a year in the military. So even though we're twins, we're quite different. But he still does share the same love for the outdoors.
Okay. Very good. No, thanks for that. That was more of some little personal knowledge that I sort of had. But I love that you sort of talk about your time at uni. I know that you kind of haven't circled back onto it, but you did actually choose to do a diploma in language as well, and that kind of led you to work in another country, and then can you just sort of explain that, like, why did you actually choose to actually go to work in another country? Was it for experience?
Yeah, that was a really interesting one, because it just kind of happened, opportunity after opportunity. When I was in one of my first classes for media and communications, I just remember it was a huge auditorium of around like 200 of us, and I looked around and I'm like, wow, this is going to be tough, because even at that point they were telling us how the media industry is really changing, and you need to have all these different skills and play all these different parts to get a job. And I just thought, well, what would set me apart and what would give me extra skills? And then I looked at the diplomas that you could do at the same time as your degree, just kind of picking up a bit of extra study on the side. And the Deakin offered a really good Arabic language program. And to be honest, like the small place where I grew up with, there were no Arabic speakers in the town. I didn't really have any family connection. It was more, I was just a curiosity, and I thought that this language would really offer something different on my CV and things like that, but also teach me a lot. And at that point, I thought I was interested in telling women's stories and traveling, and that the Middle East might be a good place to do that. And then as I signed up for that course and I went to the class, I think there were 8 people in it. It was really tight-knit in comparison to the huge auditorium. And so, I just really clicked with those people, even though we were all really different, and doing everything from science to picking up the language because it was part of our heritage. And then through that, an amazing thing about language programs is often they'll do in-country visits where you do some study in the holidays. And so that was, my first big trip out of Australia was to Jordan to study that as part of uni holidays. And then I loved it so much in my first year, I did it again in my second year, and that was to North Africa. And then, this was kind of really mind-blowing for me, because I came from this tiny little town. I had moved to Melbourne, which was already like, whoa. And then I had gone overseas with the comfort of having my uni friends and lecturers, and then it had blown out my horizons again. And it just really helped me to both increase my confidence and just broad knowledge, but connect with people that were different from me and learn from them as well, which I really got a lot out of.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then after the 2 language programs, at the end of my degree, I still had a couple of the units of this diploma to do. So I thought, why don't I just actually do like a 6-month exchange and finish my studies off over at the University of Jordan, where I had been 2 years before and had some friends there. And yeah, so then I went over and decided to finish my degree. And part of it was strategic. I had applied for some grad positions with big media outlets in Australia, and I hadn't really made it past the initial interview stages. So that was like a little bit of a blow, because at first I thought, I wanted to work for SBS or I wanted to work for ABC. And I thought I had done everything in terms of, I did an internship while I was at uni with Herald Sun, but considered a big name in media, and that maybe that would all amount, but it didn't. It was a little setback for me, but it kind of encouraged me to take this step and go finish my degree over there, which in some ways I wasn't competing in the same way with other grads for jobs, and I was able to get a journalism job there after some time, quite organically, through meeting a friend at a party and not being asked to submit a story, and then going with that, it turned into a job, which was great.
That's awesome. Oh, so it just goes to show you, the whole traditional pathway is kind of shot, really. Like, it doesn't really exist, and any opportunity could be an opportunity. That's a big sort of theme that we've touched on over the last 2 days is this whole kind of notion about skills and transferable skills, and skills that will take you from one career to the next, or one job to another, and and how to recognize them in yourself. So, with your career, or let's just focus actually on Patagonia and being involved, as the PR lead. Like, what skills do you think that we need to have to do that career, to do that job?
Yeah, sure. Well, I came to my PR role having not done specific PR studies. I'd done writing for professional practice, and then I guess I had that journalistic background. So I think I leaned quite a lot on my writing skills, and PR is about raising the brand awareness and often through the media and connecting in that way. So I think the writing was a big part of it, being able to prepare and present things just as a journalist might want it, and be able to pass that over. But also the other skills that I had developed, whether it was when I was little through the sports and then travel, just being able to chat to different people, because a lot of it is finding a common ground for mutual benefit. Like the media outlet really wants their readers to enjoy what they're putting out, and your job is in PR is to make sure your brand's included in that. So meeting in the middle and really offering something that can do both of those. So I think having the strong writing skills and the confidence helped me, and then in a way having the strong writing skills made me confident to enter into those conversations.
Yeah, wonderful. No, that's awesome. No, thank you for that. I think you've touched on all those great skills. It's fascinating to learn that you didn't get into the sort of PR world until later on in your career, and I guess that kind of opens up, and us to ask questions about, Patagonia in particular. And I guess just from working with a lot of young people and seeing the kind of changes in the careers that they want, and we know that the next generation coming through are really into, openly speaking their truth and working with brands that align with that, conscious consumption and actually thinking about things instead of just actually going and buying. And, there are so many questions that we get from students who want to work at companies like Patagonia, or people that are doing good for the planet. Why do you think that's so popular now?
I think it's a few things. Like, at this point in time, we've never been so informed and educated. So people are more than ever before aware of what's going on outside of them. And then given that you spend quite a lot of your time and energy in your job, I think people want to align both of those things and feel like the work that they're doing is for the greater benefit. And so I think that's one of the main things, like finding purpose and feeling like the little thing you go in to do every day is having a bigger impact. And I mean, I'm really fortunate because Patagonia and increasingly other companies now, especially through B Corp and different programs like that, are mission led, and that kind of just means that it's not so much about profit and your shareholders. It's a bigger idea. And you mentioned our mission before, which is linked to our environmentalism, and we're in business to save our home planet. So that kind of directs everything we do, and that means you can feel empowered that the work you're doing is helping mitigate this climate crisis that we're all living through and very much experiencing the impacts of now. But yeah, I guess that is also to say that, like, not every business will be mission-led or focusing on their environmentalism, but in most roles there is kind of a way in your scope of what you do that you can encourage improvement from the inside as well. So I think people can find purpose not only in purpose-driven companies, but in other wider roles too.
Yeah, awesome. No, thanks for explaining that. I'm actually quite pumped about the future and the future generations. And I think that even though we're experiencing some tough times at the moment and people are a little bit unsure about their courses that they want to study and if the industry that they're interested in is going to be around, I think you just nailed it then, that, you know, there are lots of different skills that you can acquire that will actually help you, you know, move through and you know, and potentially work with someone that has an environmental factor, or, you know, there's lots of things. Don't keep that open mind, you know, keep it nice and open and, you know, see what opportunities can sort of come your way. You know, and that, Elle, that leads us really awesomely into the next question, because and I know that I've asked you this question before, but can you actually tell us what it is that you do in your job? What does a PR lead mean?
Right, yeah. So as I mentioned before, it's kind of spreading the brand awareness out, whether it be to the general public, different stakeholders. Yeah, so you're in public relations, relating with the public. And then I guess, as we've talked about, doing that for Patagonia is a little bit different because the brand awareness that they're trying to raise is a little bit different. But I mean, on a day-to-day level, it's a lot of reading, a lot of emails, and a lot of meetings, and just, yeah, working with the marketing team to craft these stories. So we have a really great range of ambassadors from different sports, and then this other group of people called global sports activists that are really focused on different environmental issues. So I get to work with them and share the stories about the work they're doing. We also have a grants program through what's called 1% for the Planet, which means that we give 1% of what we make to grassroots environment organizations. And so that's a really exciting part of the business for me. And so that means not only am I doing brand awareness for Patagonia, I'm trying to share the stories of our grantees, whether that's about the Fight for the Bight Alliance or the Tarkine Rainforest in Tasmania. It's sharing stories in different ways. And so then you have the different mediums too now. As you mentioned, things change so much. I remember when I first started in media, individuals were just getting on Instagram. Businesses weren't at all. But so when you're sharing these stories about your brand, maybe you're doing it on social media, maybe you're doing it through the media, whether they be print or online, or also a bit like this, like I help with events, and increasingly they're online at the moment. Yeah, so it's a range of things inside the marketing team.
Yeah. So I know that you mentioned a couple of the causes that you guys are involved in. How do you as a team collectively decide on, you know, a project that you're interested in? or a cause that you're kind of, interested in?
Yeah, it's really great because, I mean, we're not as well known in Australia, but the brand started in the US in 1973. So there's a really long history. And the founder, Von Chenard, was a climber originally. So climbing, he moved from he wanted to make climbing tools and hardware that was less detrimental to the rock faces as they were hammering them in, kind of thing. So those kind of causes have been part of the brand's like heritage from the start. So in terms of protecting the wild places where people do these sports or pursuits, I guess, because for many people they're more than sports. So anything that really comes along in that stream fits with us. And then because we're operating in Australia and New Zealand, we look at what's happening here as well as what as a global company. So we have a really great head of environmental and sustainability at the team, and she works with a lot of different NGOs and groups that are either trying to do different activism against big corporations or even in a political sphere. And then we'll all kind of come together with her expertise in knowing the environmental groups to help with that awareness side of things. So getting the message out as wide as we can, getting as many people informed and passionate about these things too.
I love that I'm chatting with someone that their role is PR, but you haven't actually mentioned apparel, products, how that is just it's blown my mind that you can be the lead of PR, but the whole ethos is actually is actually living to the mission. That you see people that have got a mission, but you guys actually, it's just all about practicing what you preach. And I just love that, and I think that's why I'm personally so in love with the brand, and so many people I know are. But Al, we have some brilliant questions that have come in. So I'm going to open it up to the Q&A box, which is an interesting place to dive into at the end of each speaker chat, let me tell you that much. So the first question is from Anonymous, and it's, how many people work in the PR team Patagonia, and do you offer work experience?
Okay, so at the moment we don't have a work experience program, but we do have a really successful one in the US. So when we can, we really want to take the model of what they've been doing and employ it in Australia. But that's like, watch this space. Unfortunately, it's not at the moment, but hopefully it isn't too far away. And that kind of leads into the next bit, which is we're a lot smaller than you might think here. So I'm the first PR employee they've had for Australia and New Zealand. Prior to that, we have a marketing team, and there's 4 members of that team. So previously, the marketing manager kind of also did the PR role, but outsourced to a lot of PR agencies that did the work campaign by campaign. So every couple of months, if they needed help with a brand awareness or there was a particular story to share, that was done externally. So yeah, the PR team is me as part of the larger marketing team, and no work experience yet, but hopefully in the near future.
Oh, fingers crossed. Let's just hope that that's a possibility, because, what would it be in comparison, Al? Like, if you were to compare Australia with the US, what would the PR and marketing teams, in terms of size, be like over there?
Yep. So we also have regions. So the Asia Pacific region, there's a PR manager for that region who I kind of report to and who I can bounce ideas off in that. And then, after that regional grouping, then you've got the global grouping, and then also, as it's part of global, there's the US. So I'd say there's maybe 6 people focused on PR in the US.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. It's amazing. It's from my perspective, it's probably not as big as what I envisaged it would be. So thank you for explaining that. That's it's good to know. Next question. How is the brand changing because of COVID?
Yeah, so I've been working here in my living room and house since March. So our head office closed down, even though we are in Torquay, which is stage 3 at the moment. We just decided to do that. And especially with schools closing down and things like that, it allows a lot more flexibility for the staff. So our head office has been closed. Our stores in Australia have been closed and a few have now reopened, but we've been fortunate our online side of the business has been able to stay operational, whereas in the US and some other countries they had to close everything down. So it has been a really challenging time for the company globally. But I mean, it has been for everyone globally. It's really a new kind of, lifestyle and workplace functionality that we're living with right now. In terms of what we're doing, we have tried to kind of quench the thirst for content that's happened at this time. So we have a film company, Patagonia Films, and we've been trying to share as many of our films as widely as we can and giving people great stories to read while they're in lockdown. So from, thinking about PR and communications, that's been a big focus for me, focusing more on those sort of things and being considerate to not advertise outdoor gear when people can't go outside in those locations and that kind of thing. But yeah, fortunately in some areas, people are still able to get outside and enjoy the outdoors just with new precautions. And then when they're doing that, they still want good gear.
Yeah, no, that's all. Yeah, I mean, yes, we cannot go anywhere, so please don't pump all those beautiful. Actually, no, I mean your production, the videos and even all the content is just they're so inspiring, and it's just it's going to be an incredible world that we can attack as soon as we're allowed to get out in amongst it. So no, I think that's a brilliant way of changing the PR landscape that you work in internally, and just pivoting a little bit and showing us more of those incredible stories that you do so well at telling. So I guess that sort of leads into another question, which is around grad positions. So a little bit before you mentioned about finding a position post, uni. So a question is, how do you find grad positions? Is that through the uni itself or? Yeah,
when I was at university, I remember there was a job board, like a virtual job board, and that's how I knew about the graduate positions for the big media organizations. And I think for NGOs and things like that too, they also advertise on those spaces. And then often they're very competitive because they're big companies and they do get a lot of applicants. So it's a bit of a intense period of polishing your CV, and I guess that goes back to having as much work experience and extracurricular little bits to add on there to get noticed. And as I mentioned before, I never really made it past the first few interview stages, but I did have some friends that ended up in their first roles through grad positions. So I think it's definitely a process that you should go through, and even if it is just to help you rework your CV and get some more practice with cover letters, or even in face-to-face interview scenarios, I think it's very worthwhile. And the University Jobs Board was how I came across it. All the organisations themselves will usually advertise.
Yeah, great. It's another thing for everyone to sort of take note of, because you go to your further education provider to learn skills, but sometimes you actually don't think to sort of use them as a way to actually get a job. So I think that's awesome, sort of connecting the two together. Al, we have more questions in the chat box, but I'm just really conscious that we're kind of running out of time. So I would love to ask you one final question before we sort of close everything up together, and that's if you could just give us one piece of advice, just one piece, can you give yourself, what would all right. I've said this sentence many times over the past couple of days. You think I could nail it, but no. What's that one piece of advice that you would give your 17-year-old self?
Yeah, I think a really fitting one at this time would be to just confide in the idea that you are really resilient. For me, in my career, I had different knockbacks. I mean, there's so many barriers as you progress along it. Maybe you don't get that job interview, maybe you can't move to that place, maybe you get your heart broken. I don't know, all these things that impact the trajectory you take for your career. But having gone through that, just being able to now confide in that when things go wrong, I'm going to be okay, and maybe good opportunities are actually going to come out of these things that felt like they were wrong turns anyway. And I think, as challenging as the time is now with students trying to do exams under these conditions, and then the university landscape changing, it might feel like everything's against you. But if you just kind of confide in the fact that you'll get through it, I think that will put you in a better position to be open and curious about the opportunities that might come. So I wish I kind of knew that and chilled out a little bit along the way as I was taking those turns.
Oh, that is just such the most perfect ending to this session, Elle. And I think, you know what, I just know just from chatting with you that you just have, you know, just so much heart and love for everything that you do. And you know, COVID, pre-COVID, post-COVID, like I'm just so excited to hear more about, you know, the journey that you take. And thank you for being so open and honest with your answers today. And if anyone wants to connect with you, are they able to sort of, you know, potentially connect with you on LinkedIn, or, you know, are there ways that students can ask you questions?
Yeah, LinkedIn's probably the best way because it'll come direct through to my email. And then, especially if you have specific questions around Patagonia, I can either answer them myself or I can forward you on to the most appropriate person to, get those answers for you.
Oh, Al, that was amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here and for being our last speaker and for literally ending on such an amazing note. So thank you for being involved.
Thanks so much for hosting, and it's great to be a part of it.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
You too. See ya.
Bye.